My name is Simone Kluge and this is the Mother Podcast. So what is grief and how do we deal with grief, especially when we deal with the loss of a mother? This is a question I asked myself when I lost my mother in 2016 and was going through the process of dealing with my own grief. So in early 2019, I decided to start the Mother Podcast to try and find out how other women like myself have dealt with their grief. So every month I will interview a different female and find out what has helped them deal with their loss. I hope that this will be an open space for these women to speak about grief, death, and more importantly, mother loss. So for anyone tuning in, I hope these conversations will give you an insight on how to deal with losing someone you love, especially your mother. This is the Mother Podcast. So my name is Simone Kluge and welcome back to the Mother Podcast. So as you heard earlier in my introduction, I spoke about why I started the Mother Podcast. This was after my mum passed away in 2016 from acute myeloid leukemia. So this is basically where she didn't have enough white blood cells to fight off infections and ended up passing away. So a bit about her story and what led to her passing. So my mum was someone that was incredibly fit and incredibly healthy. And she actually worked as a makeup artist. She was a makeup artist for a brand called Fashion Fair and worked in beauty for like the past 10 years. People often ask me like, what was my mum like? And I say that she was someone that was incredibly classy, like a real lady. She would say to me, Simone, make sure you act like a lady. And always, she was incredibly elegant and incredibly immaculate. And I think what happened is in 2014 she went to work as normal and she wasn't feeling well, so she went to the hospital, and at the time they said to us that she was fine and she came home. And for the next 2 weeks she was going in and out of hospital and they still couldn't find out what was wrong with her. And eventually she was then diagnosed with leukemia. And I think at the time, for myself and my siblings, I'm the middle child, she always made us feel like everything was going to be okay. She was like, I'm fine, there's a cure, I'm going to fight this. And she ended up being taken into St. Bart's Hospital to have her chemotherapy and her treatment. And the whole time of her being there, she was incredibly strong. I don't think I saw my mum even cry once. And she would go there for like her chemo, and it was within a space of a year that she passed away. And looking back in hindsight, I think we didn't actually realize that she was dying. She had a stem cell transplant and was doing really, really well, and then it was a very fast decline towards her death. I mean, my sister took 3 months off work to look after her, and it's funny because towards the end of her life, my sister, I'm the middle child. My sister Madeline's the eldest, and she's someone who is quite headstrong. She just gets on with things, and I'm always seen, I think, as the more emotional one, the more emotional sibling. So actually, in the days leading up to her death, my sister wasn't well, so came home. And I was in the hospital maybe the day before she died. And it's weird because I think like throughout leading up to her death, I was kind of really distracted with work and wasn't really dealing with the process of her dying really well. And towards the end of her life, it was actually me that was there. I was with her when she actually died, and my sister and my dad just made it just in time. And it's weird because I thought in a way, like seeing someone like your mother die, that I wouldn't be able to cope. But in a way, it's almost like I knew that it was that it was happening, and I in some way found that strength. So I think it's interesting when things are quite tough that you do find this inner strength. And it's weird that in a way I felt like your mother is the person that brought you into the world, but for me it was a blessing to have been there towards to see her out of the world. So yeah, it's definitely has been like a very insightful process. So what has been the hardest thing to deal with since my mum has passed? So I think I'm gonna spend a lot of this podcast crying. I think it's been the separation. Before my mum passed away, I'd never experienced any kind of grief. My mum's mum is still alive, and no one close to me has ever passed away. I've never lost. I think the person I'd lost before that was probably my mentor, and I think I spent like 2 days in my bed, like just completely crying. But when my mum passed away, it was just it was more a feeling of being really numb. It was just a complete shock because she was so strong and was like, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to fight this. It kind of just still came as a real shock. So I think that separation for me has definitely been the hardest process. And it's funny because after, I think she passed away on a Tuesday, and on the Saturday, two of my closest friends got married. And I actually had, I think it was like seven weddings that year, plus my mum's funeral. And so I think then going to all these weddings and having to be really, really happy, and at the back of my mind thinking, wow, my mum is never going to see me get married. She's never going to be part of that journey. And I then, just started to become quite angry. And that thing of there's so many things she's never gonna live to see. And I remember having this conversation with one of her best friends, and I thought, I kind of felt that I'd failed her in a way, that I thought my mum was the kind of woman and kind of person that she would always say to me, oh, Simone, I can't wait to do your makeup on your wedding day, or see her grandchildren. And I kind of in a way felt that I had failed her in a way. But I remember her friend saying to me that, well, Simone, her job was done. The period of her life that she was on this earth was maybe just up to this point, and it's for you to carry on her legacy. So I think in many ways, that's how I like to think of it, in a way that her job here was done to that certain point. And I think in a way that is something that has helped me a bit more, but still I think it's painful to think that she won't really get to see the fruits of her labour. Because my parents came here, my parents have been together for the past, I think, about 40 years. So my dad is an accountant, and he came here to do his masters. And my mum, a really funny story, I remember she told me this, would always tell me this, so I think they were seeing each other, then he came here, and then he had no idea that she was going to come from Ghana. So I think she was 26 at the time, and she literally got on a plane and decided that she wanted to come and be with him, and she got on a plane and ended up like in his house and was like, I'm here. And he was like, what are you doing here? And she was like, I set my mind on the fact that I wanted to be in London and raise my family here. So that's what I decided. That's what I decided to do. And it's a story that always sticks in my mind, that my mum at such a young age decided to come here. She didn't know anybody in London. She had never, she didn't have any work here, but she had her mind that she was gonna push through. And I think that when she came here and had my sister, my brother and I, she didn't have her mother with her. She had to fend on her own. So at times where I think, how am I going to cope without her being here? How am I going to raise my family without her being by my side? I realized that she was able to do it on her own, in a sense. So if she can do it, then in many ways I can also push through. And what has helped me to deal with my grief, I think, has been counselling. I'm someone that I think my friends would say, I've got a lot of friends, but I'm someone that I think doesn't really speak a lot about how I feel. And I think even during my mum's illness, nobody knew, which was funny that my mum was such a private person and we kept it just within our family. So I was still going to work and going out and seeing my friends, but nobody really knew that how ill she was. And for me, it was almost like I couldn't speak about it. So even after she passed, I really still found it difficult to say, my mum has passed away from cancer, because I was like, it's something that I can't mention. And I think that after she passed, I then decided to do like bereavement counselling. I think for that has really helped me to process my grief and process my pain, and really speaking about how I was feeling, because throughout the process, I think we didn't really realize that she was dying. So all these feelings were just kind of boxed up completely. And even after her death, I mean, my family are, as I mentioned earlier, from Ghana, the Ghanaian, and there's a massive process within the funeral process. I mean, her funeral was like over 3 days, and she maybe had like over 1,000 people, I think, on the first day. And my parents are from different tribes, so every tribe had to wear a certain colour. We had to, wear certain cloths. We had to fly my grandmother over from Ghana. And there were so many things that we didn't realise within like the funeral process. Like, I didn't realise that when you pass away, like you have to wear a shroud. So my mum had to almost wear like a wedding dress. And it was so ironic, because I think to myself, Mum would be there for me, help me pick my dress, and I'm helping her to, I'm picking a kind of wedding dress that she's going to be buried in. So there were so many different emotions that were happening during that time, and we didn't really speak about it because everything was so busy. There was people in our house like every day for like 2 months, and that's just part of the Ghanaian tradition, that people, are in your house, that, they're there to support you, which is amazing and beautiful. But at the same time, I think we didn't really have time to grieve as a family for a while. So the process of counselling and speaking, I think for me, has really made me be like, this is my story, and this is something that I really need to share and to speak about. And I think another thing that really helped me was running and exercise. I'm someone that's naturally slim, but I'd never really loved running. I mean, I wouldn't even like walk from the station to my house, and it's like 10 minutes. I was like, no, somebody, get on the bus. But one of my close friends ran a marathon, maybe, I think it was like 2 years ago, and was really into running all the time. And I was trying to find different ways to kind of like relax and just stress my mind. So after my mum passed in 2016, I think a year and a half ago, I decided to run a 10K and also do a skydive. And surprisingly, my mum's birthday is one day after my birthday. And I always thought, if anything happens to my mum, how will I deal with her not being here? And our birthdays are so close. So I did a 10K just after my skydive, and every day I think I was running like 3 or 4 times a week. And that thing of just focusing on a goal and running and having that escapism where you're thinking of nothing else but just focusing on running, I think really helped me just relax and kind of took me to a different space. So I was almost to just use the running to kind of move me away from my grief in a way, and just exercising. So I think for me, it almost became my form of therapy, and I just pushed myself. I was enjoying that running for like an hour and a half, and I think I did that every day. I did that 3 or 4 times a week, and I think in terms of dealing with my grief, it really helped, because I spent, after my mum passed, so in terms of my work, I lecture in, I'm now a lecturer in textile design, and I'd worked as a stylist before, and decided to go back to uni and do my postgrad. So I was working as a stylist Monday to Friday at H&M, studying, and then also teaching. So there was so much going on. My mind was so busy that I wasn't really grieving. So I felt like when I was running, I kind of had a chance to really reflect on how I was feeling. And if I think about what are the most important lessons I've learned from the passing of my mother, there are so many. I think for me, what has surprised me, so I'm start crying again probably, is my resilience. I think I didn't realize how strong I was. I think maybe being there towards the end of her life and having to be really strong, I realized that I'm actually a lot stronger than I think. So I feel like my mum not being here, not being in the house, I feel that in a way that I did kind of take her for granted. Like, it's weird that you know that your mum does everything, but I think I didn't realize how traditional mum was. So even in terms of like the cooking and the cleaning in the house and taking care of the house, I think the first week that she wasn't here, my sister and I were like, how does she do all this? Like, we're two people and we're trying to like cook and clean and sort things out. And I think we sat back and were like, wow, how did she run this? Like, she was basically Superwoman, and she would do it completely without even complaining. And I think she would always say to me and my sister, you guys don't know what you know, you're always going out, you're never here to help me, and you know, and be like, oh, she's just complaining. And I think we kind of in a way just felt guilty, like we took her for granted. Not took her for granted, but I think it's just appreciating her presence. That your mum is, I remember because I've been doing counselling for the past year, and my counsellor was saying to me, it's almost like your house is a country, isn't it? And it's almost like your mum is that person running that army, and when that person is not there anymore, everything just folds through. And I think it's that strength of a woman that, you know, there's that saying like your house is, you know, it's a mother that makes the house a home. And I think it's such a small statement, but it carries so much weight that your mother is the center. They're the love. They're the person that you turn to. And I think that in that moment, I realized that, wow, being a mum is more than just, you know, looking after your kids. You're the center of everything. And I think in that hit me, I thought, wow, I now do not have that. So I think it made me just realize the strength of being a woman and being a mother, that it's more than, you know, just, you know, it's a full-time job. It's everything. And it's weird because I'm now godmother to 5 children. I have five godchildren, and like my friends asked me to be godmother, and I take my role like really seriously. I'm always doing different things for them. But I also think to myself, a lot of my close friends have now become mothers, and seeing them go through that process, I think it just hits me. And I think, you know, all the little things that they're thinking of, and I always think, oh, was my mum thinking about that when she first had us? Or, you know, the little things that they always have to remember. And I just think that, wow, like, I don't know, I'm not going to have my mother there, but it just gives me, I just have so much admiration and respect for them being mothers. So I think that is, you know, it's something that when I do become a mum, that I won't take for granted. And also my health. I think that obviously my mum passing away from cancer, it was a lot. And I think I'm someone that I've always been well. I mean, I'm slightly anemic, but I've never been like, my health has always been on the back burner. But I think now I'm a lot more conscious of like the things that I'm eating and what I'm putting into my body, and trying to like take care of myself. I think I was saying to my friend before that my mum, towards the end of her life, that we gave her a lot of like juices and juicing, and I believe that kept her alive the last 3 months of her life. And even with my dad, he's changed like his complete lifestyle of how he eats and how he takes care of himself. And I just think that it's cliche, but your health is your wealth. And it really is that just not taking your health for granted. And even now when I'm walking or if I'm doing anything, I just take my time. And I think even though, my career might not be where I want it to be, like, or if I'm struggling on things, I think, but Simone, you have the gift of waking up every morning and opening your eyes and you're alive. And with that, you have possibilities. And I just try not to take the smallest things for granted and appreciate the fact that I'm here and that I'm alive. And what advice would I give to anyone who has recently lost their mum? That's a big one. I think to take your time, that it's a process. I think it goes in waves. I think at first for me, I think I felt a lot of guilt and I felt really guilty because I think whilst my mum was sick, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I feel like I wasn't there as much as I could be, but I feel like also I couldn't handle it. So I think that just realize that it's a process, and with time things will, it sounds cliche, but time is a healer. I feel like you will never get over the loss of any parent or any friend or any sibling. I think it's like, especially with your mum, it's a part of you. It's it's the person that brought you into this world, so things will never be the same. But take your time, just surround yourself with people that love you. Get creative, get moving, do exercise, try and find joy in the small things. For me, I really feel like therapy has really helped me. I do feel like there's two Simones. There's the Simone before my mum passed, and then there's the Simone after. I feel like there isn't a big difference between the two, but I'll never be the same person as I was before. But speaking, I think for me has really helped. With the old me, I'm not a person that's incredibly open. Like, as I was saying before, like, none of my friends knew my mum was sick because she didn't really want me to share it, and I didn't feel like I could be open enough. But I feel like talking about your loss and talking about your grief is really a way to just let everything out. And I think also there's other things in there that you may not think are affecting you, and that have layers. And I think even if it's sudden death, or the person is ill, there's so much that you're processing. And I feel like talking about it is something I feel that everyone should do. And I think it's something that that really helps. So overall, what do I hope the Mother podcast will provide? To be honest with you, I think for me, this is kind of like my form of therapy. I was saying that I literally had this idea at the end of 2018 that I wanted to do this, and I kind of put it off. But I hope it's a space where I can connect with all these different women that have also gone through, obviously, losing their mum. And I think at the time I was looking for different things that could help me. I think I found a book called like Motherless Daughters, and I was reading through it, but I also felt that I couldn't connect with it. So I'm hoping that it will provide comfort, that it will provide support. I think even knowing other females that have lost their mum and how they're coping will also help me, and also help them in their conversation and help them at whatever stage they're at with their grief. If another female person can listen to this, or male, and it can support them if they're going through the process of their mother dying or losing a parent, if it can give them one glimmer of hope, then I'll feel like I have done a good service, and that they can find comfort in this. I'm not sure where it's going to go, and as I said, it's like a year project that I've set myself, that I really hope that people tuning in will find comfort and find a place of peace, because I think there is no amount of words that can help you deal with the loss of your mother. I think it's a different kind of pain, and it's a different kind of it's a painful process, and I'm going to probably cry throughout the whole of this podcast, which is fine. But I really hope that it brings comfort, and that I think that is my overall goal. So tune in, and the next 12 episodes hopefully will be very insightful, and hopefully will give us a chance to really deal with the subject of grief and death. So thank you for listening in.